Ronnie, thank you for giving me some time today. It's an absolute pleasure being able to have a chat with you, having listened to your music for so many years. So thank you very much.
It's nice to be here, Dave. Nice to be here.
Well, of course, we're here. We're going to have a chat about Make It Count, your upcoming album that's released on March the 18th. But if
Yeah.
it's all right with you, Ronnie, I'd like to begin by spending a little bit of time in the 1980s
Mm.
because we're both the same age. We there were pop culture references are the same. Albums were coming out when we were the same age. Obviously, I was buying the albums. You were making them as well because the 80s is the beginning of Pretty Maids, loads of other incredible rock bands that I'm so glad are still making music and are out there. What was the 1980s like for you? What pops to your mind when you think of that decade?
Booze and alcohol. I mean,
It is it.
that's the problem with rock. I can't remember the 80s. No, it was a good time. I mean, pretty much started in 81, 82. And, we were just a couple of punks that, were played music together and stuff like that, for the fun of it. And we had a goal, to get signed to a record, get a record deal and go out and tour and everything. And for some reason we just I think we came in at the right time because in the early like 83, 84, MTV came along
Yeah.
and hard rock and heavy metal was the top of the pops. I mean, it was on mainstream radio and
Mhm.
on television and stuff like that, But it was like one thing to the other. We got signed to. We had a record deal actually with a record company, a little record company called Bullet Records from up in Stoke-on-Trent, and then we would CBS Records took over later on, and we just basically the 80s we carried out our childhood dreams, because when I was a kid I want to watch my first the Sweet concert. I was
Oh
10,
wow.
10, 11 years, man. I just wanted to be Brian Connolly.
Oh
I
yeah.
just wanted to be those guys. I remember I had papers, I was drawing them. I was a huge fan of glam rock to begin with. And then suddenly in the 80s we pretty after we got signed, we had some good connections to a friend of ours, and we went on a Black Sabbath tour when Ian Gillan was in the band, and that was our first touch of stardom.
Yeah.
And later on, we actually Ian Gillan got us on the BBC Friday Night Rock show with Tony Wilson back then, and that
Yeah. Yeah.
started something. And then we toured with Saxon and Judas Priest and Rainbow up to the 80s, and the 80s was our heyday. We had some really successful albums in talking about Pretty Mates albums like Red Hot and Heavy, Future World, Jump the
Mhm.
Gun. They are for a lot of fans, it's the milestones of our career. And the 80s was, as I said before, hard rock and heavy metal, and also the hair metal bands. And what was really on a roll back then, it was commercial, and we sold a hell of a lot of records, but we did
Yeah.
a hell of a bad record deal, so it's not really that you can see it on my bank account, but
Oh
we had a
no.
hell of a lot of fun. That's for sure, Because I mean, suddenly we were out there having our own coach, our own tour bus, and stuff like that, and hanging out with Ian Gillan, Tony Iommi, Richard Blackmore. We toured with Deep Purple as well in '87,
Yeah.
and they were super nice guys and played football every city we came to with Richard Blackmore and stuff. And I was a huge Purple fan. So it was a wonderful time. And then the grunge came along in the
Oh
beginning of the
yeah.
'90s, and we all died more or less. So
Yeah.
so it was an uphill climbing through the '90s because there were so many subgenres and stuff like that. It was like the scene changed constantly,
Yeah.
and there was grunge, there was Britpop, then it was new metal and really hardcore shit and stuff like that. And we were still this melodic rock, hard rock, heavy metal band. But we stuck to our roots actually,
Yeah.
and I think later on it kind of paid off. In fact, talking about Pretty Mates, I think everything we've done since 2010 and onwards onto the last album, 2019, I think we kept a high level. And
Definitely.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm very happy for the albums that we kind of reinvented ourselves and started writing really good songs again, stuff like that. So it was a good run. Well,
I
we
think
had a
that's
lot of fun. I remember the '80s. Just it was parties. I mean, party is the key word for the '80s somehow. It was just like that. We lived
it.
the dream.
Oh, that's good to hear because I both myself and everybody, all the listeners, I'm sure, that lived through that decade think so fondly of it. It was such an incredible decade. And I know that, people older than us, and they talk about the 60s like that, and that was such an incredible decade. I guess it's, depending what age you were as you went through it. But I think for music, and especially rock music, it was just so wild. And I vividly remember when grunge music came in, and it just killed all the music that I'd loved for the last decade.
But it was, it was a great time. I mean, I was 17 when it all started, and in fact, I'm still 17, at least up here, Good. So it's kind of 40th anniversary up here.
Wow.
No, it was good times. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And then the grunge came along. I remember the first time I heard Smells Like Teen Spirit on an American radio station. And I said, what the fuck is that? Mm-hmm. I mean, and I was actually, I got to say, I was totally hooked on it to begin with. I thought there was so much raw energy in it, and I guess it was a bit like, bands like Purple and Sabbath must have felt the same thing when a band like the Sex Pistols came along in 75, 76. It's basically the same thing, because sometimes there just has to be a musical revolt somehow. It's just going to happen. But then what came with it, well, it was I think grunge was there was a lot of good. I mean, Super Unknown by Soundgarden is a great album, and the first Pearl Jam and stuff like. But I got fed up with it because it was so introvert, and it was everything quite the opposite of partying for me. Coming out of the 80s, So I think it also saw it as and they all committed suicide for some reason. I mean, and it was just a little depressed at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the big difference. Well, just one of the big differences was the music was, all through the 80s and the rock bands, it was all feel good and all good messages. And then this came out and it was all.
And I missed that a lot of times. I missed that, up to the 90s. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I loved about your music all the way through your career, Ronnie, is you've always delivered, and I've talked about it many times on these shows. I love with rock music, I like stuff with awesome vocals. You tick the box, definitely. Great melodies, great guitar sound, good drums, good production, and every album that you've been involved with, you tick every box so that, and that consistency through. I know. And again, listeners know that, and we said before recording, I just do shows with people whose work I really love. So this is really true when I say I know that when you're involved in an album, I'm going to really enjoy it. So thank you for all that music and, and the upcoming album that people should definitely pre-order. So
I think we've been, in Pretty Mace, we were pretty consistent, but because, the most important thing for us and for me too, it was always, it had to be good songs,
Yeah.
And, at times we also tried to kind of update ourselves with.
There's the progression.
What was going on, but we never really succeeded, because it always ended up sounding like Pretty Mace whatsoever. But the thing is that, it's my voice cannot be grunge, my voice cannot be nu metal or whatever, I sound like I do, and if people listen to my voice, people will say, well, that sounds like Pretty Mace, whatever I do, whether I do Nordic Union or I do my own stuff. Some people will say, well, that sounds like Pretty Mace. Yes, because I was the voice in that band for 40 years, and I guess I still am. But we always try to be to write good songs, and that was the key thing for us. To do that,
because I know with your songwriting, I know that you'd like to keep an eye on world events, and that comes through in your lyrics. And obviously, there's been quite a lot happening over the last few years that have influenced your lyrics.
The last 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, and you've been going through your personal stuff, which I can't even begin to imagine. And so, when you were writing, One Shot, the previous album before the upcoming Make It Count, it wasn't long since your diagnosis with cancer. And how do you compartmentalize everything that's been going on with you and all the health issues and so on, everything that's been happening in the world? How do you just put that into different pieces and carry on and write the lyrics without going, I don't know if I could cope with everything in the world and everything that you're still going through personally?
Well, we're talking about One Shot, it was the first solo album, right? That was recorded in the spring and summer of 2020, which was actually more or less straight after I had a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, I just got to say before I say anything more, I feel good today. And
Excellent.
my cancer rate has eased. I just had good results from the doctors, so thank God. But when I did that, when I wrote these songs, because I used my music, the writing music and writing lyrics as some kind of therapy with myself instead of talking to a psychologist. I tried to talk to a psychologist, but I used it to keep myself occupied with something positive. You know, that was the whole intention. That's what I did. It just came natural because I am a songwriter whatsoever. I always did that. And of course, some of the lyrics are very personal, reflecting and melancholic, so to speak, obviously for a reason. And in fact, I did one song called Carry Me Over, which was the very first song I actually did. It didn't end up on the One Shot album, but it came out on an acoustic album last fall called Four More Shots. I didn't want to put it on the album because when I listened to the lyrics, I like the song. It's a nice ballad, acoustic ballad, but the words were written when I was totally in pit, you know, it was written in my darkest hour. And there's so much grief and shock and, you know, in those words, and it reflects on some of the lyrics on One Shot and Make It Count as well, because that was the state I was in when I wrote these lyrics. But particularly in doing the first album, the second album when we did was done the same way. We actually did. I wrote a song, sent it up to Stockholm. They did a demo of it. Chris Laney, our producer, did a demo, and I did the lyrics to make sure that that the lyrics were there so they could finish it. If I should die, you know, I don't want to sound like a drama queen, but that was that was my reality, and particularly in 2020, 2021 as well. But in 2020, I was in panic. So it really is from the heart, you know, what I'm writing about. But at the same time, I try to, you know, to keep you know, to squeeze in some kind of a positive twist to it, you know, that even though there's nothing is so bad that there's not somehow a way out. I mean, basically what I'm trying to say, that there were two paths I could go by, right? I could sit down and feel sorry for myself. I said that in numerous interviews, but I could sit down and feel sorry for myself, or I could say, no fucking way, man. I want to get these songs out of my system, and I want to do something. I've got to work. I won't surrender, you know, to the disease. And I've been so fortunate that I wasn't really, really, really sick from the radiation and the chemo. I had my downs, of course, and I also had immune therapy for 2 years, and I have my issues now and then, but I've seen people being really sick. My own mother died of cancer, exactly the same cancer as I have, actually, lung cancer that spread to the bones. But this was in '88. Today, they're much more ahead of it, you know, fortunately. And so I know how sick people can be. But I just try to, you know, like be an example and show the people that I still got something to offer. And that's what I've been doing with these two albums. And I had a hell of a lot of fantastic response, a lot of love and sweet messages and advice and stuff from fans from all around the world on the social medias, and also people that write to me that, thank you, Ronnie, you really inspire us by doing what you do and stuff like that. And if I do that, hey man, then I'm happy, because that just means a lot to me. So it's definitely been two albums that are, as I said, much more reflecting, personal and melancholic. Because it's my solo albums, I can write about it. I couldn't do this on a Pretty Mates album, because in Pretty Mates I represent a band, you know. But this is easier for me because a lot of times it's also the vibe of the song that kind of decides what direction the lyrics are going to go. And in fact, it was so much at some point times I've got to get away from this topic, you know, about me, myself, and I, you know, and how I feel, because I don't want it to be a funeral record, you know. So I had to find other topics to write about, and there's a lot of shit going on in the world anyway. You know? On the first album, Before the Rise of an Empire, was about what happened in Belarus, you know, and stuff like Picture Yourself was about all the racial segregation, all the shit that went on in America at the time, you know. So. But definitely my personal issues and situation has a big impact on these two albums for sure.
And your musical influences as well, that'll feed into your songwriting, because I know one band that you really love, and I do as well. They were the first band, Ronnie, that I really got into in a big way in the 70s, and that was ABBA. I was obsessed with ABBA. I went to the cinema. I went to the cinema 3 times to see ABBA the movie. I was just, oh my God, these are so good. And I know you're a big fan of ABBA. You know, there's music that's timeless as well.
You know what? I'll tell you something. My siblings are between 9 and 12 years older than me, or 10 or 13 years older than me. And I grew up with a lot of the music from the late 60s and the 70s, of course. And I heard it from their record players and stuff like that. And there was a lot of Beatles, a lot of late 60s psychedelic and Bee Gees and all that kind of stuff. And ABBA up through the 70s. I mean, listen, it's some of the best pop songs ever written.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge ABBA fan. It's not a secret. And so it was like this when I got into metal and stuff like that. And when people came to visit my room when I was living at my parents' flat, I had all these hard rock albums, and so all my friends, the same thing, right? And in there, somewhere between when they came and visited, I had to hide away my Bee Gees and ABBA records, you know, because I didn't want them to see them. But no, I'm a huge ABBA fan, and the great thing here is that if you take a song like "Make It Count," the title track on the new album, which is probably, I think, one of the best songs I've ever written, you know. But I actually wrote it. It was written as a piano ballad, kind of. You know, the intro riff I had for a long time, actually, for years, actually. But I never used it. I never presented it to Pretty Mates. And actually, I sent it up to Chris, you know. And Chris and me, Chris Delaney, the producer, we're on the same page, you know. And he's a huge ABBA fan, too. In fact, he worked at the Polar Studios, where ABBA recorded all their music, more or less, you know. And so he sent me back this arrangement where it suddenly went almost kind of late 70s disco. And he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Are you crazy, man?" I was blown away because they were so good. And then, "Should we go for this?" "Yeah, fucking let's go for it. You know, let's go all ABBA on it, you know." And we actually managed to get Lasse Welander, the guitarist from ABBA, who played on all ABBA records from Arrival up until the last one, actually.
Yeah.
He heard the song, and he said, "It's a great song. You know, you love the song?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll do the solo and the guitar, some of the guitar stuff on it." And he did. So I got that one off my bucket list. Now I can say that I got an ABBA musician on my album, and that is fantastic, you know. Thanks to Chris.
That is awesome. I've got to admit, that is really, really awesome.
But it's kind of funny, you know, because I remember when I was a 10, 11-year-old punk, man, I was totally amazed by ABBA. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And I grew up with those guys. And if you listen to the songs, I mean, I know some hard rock bands has covered their songs, you know, like there's a German band called Advance, who's a friend of mine from the Avantasia project that I'm part of, a guy called Oliver Hartman. He's singing on that one. It's a great version. The Winner Takes It All. But the songs invite to it because they're big, they're huge, they're epic, you know, a lot of their stuff. And Pretty Mates, we actually talked about covering SOS a lot of times, but we never managed to do it.
Oh, wow.
But I love that song. I never get fed up with these songs. It's just great.
No. It's like Eagle is my favorite ABBA song.
Oh, man. Hey, we talked about that one too. That's one of my favorites as well. The vibe of that, the atmosphere of that song is so fucking great.
Oh, yeah. And the way that you said it fits in, you know, it can fit in easily with heavy rock and heavy metal.
Easily.
It's because Sergeant Fury did a cover of it. And it's an incredible rock version of Eagle. You listen to it and you think, and it just shows how it can all meld together. This, you know, the pop music and the rock music, how it all goes together. I've got to admit, when I knew that our interview was on, I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube, as you can these days, and I was watching old Pretty Made videos.
Okay.
And I went back, obviously, to the 80s with like Future World and Waiting for the Time and loads of others, because I know it's just a few days ago, isn't it, that you recorded the new music video for the upcoming album. Am I right in saying that? It was just a few days ago.
For Make It Count, right?
Yeah.
No, for Brandon, actually just did some videos for a video for a new single called Hurt Myself by Hurting You, which will come out next week. It's kind of, it's just me, actually. Because, I mean, that's like most of the videos are just me because the band's living in Stockholm or split around Stockholm and Denmark. So it's not easy to just gather people, you know. But I promised the record company video. So it's just another me video standing on a stage. You know, it's a bit of boring, and I fucking hate doing videos.
Do you really? What is it that you hate doing about them?
Well, I just don't like. I'm not an actor, man. I'm a musician. I like being on stage. I love that, being in front of a crowd, but standing there posing and stuff like. I hate photo sessions as well. I always did. So, but it's just like what I call a necessary evil. I know a lot of people that don't like shooting videos. I mean, if I got a whole band there, we can just act like we play and play, like playback kind of thing. That's a bit cooler. But when it's just me, first of all, it gets boring to watch. But how much can I do? I mean, how much can you do? I'm doing the same poses and shit like that every time. Same thing goes for photo sessions. No, I'm not a big fan of it, but they want it.
Do you ever go online and look through? I mean, because one of the things about being in a band or, a celebrity, an actor or anything, these days especially, your entire life is online with videos, like I said, with the music videos, photographs and that. Do you ever find yourself going on and having a look because you've got your own personal time machine in front of you? I know you like to look forward rather than back, but because the temptation's there.
I rarely watch myself. I know there's a lot of live videos from Pretty Mates and whatever I've done in my career. I never see it. And this is honestly speaking, I fucking hate watching myself. Maybe that's why I hate doing videos. I never do it because I know there's probably I probably will sing out a tune on some of them and stuff like that, because it's live and we're only humans, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a thing I totally. I think it's kind of. I mean, the internet and the fact that people has free asset to go and check out what you did last night at the concert and stuff. It's kind of cool from a fan's point of view. But then again, I think it takes away some of the excitement, because they know exactly what songs you're going to play, unless you're going to change your set list every fucking day. But most doesn't, right? Maybe we normally have 2 or 3 songs we swap, But I think a little of the excitement has gone, because these days people know everything right away, I remember when I was 15, 16 years old. I mean, I was looking forward for every second week. Went to the local store here that had the English magazine called Kerrang. Right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
It was the hard rock Bible for me back then.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was so much looking forward to there was something new about Ozzy Osbourne or Rainbow and what songs does he play live. When we went to concerts, when I went to the first, Thin Lizzy concerts, Rainbow concerts, whatsoever, and we were so excited to see what song do you think they're going to start off.
Yeah.
Today people know right away. It takes a little bit of the excitement away from it.
I completely agree, because I remember going to gigs again through the 80s, and exactly like you said, Ronnie, you've got no idea what the set list was going to be or what the stage show was going to be or anything at all, and that excitement was there. And one thing that pisses me off nowadays is you'll go to a gig of any genre, and throughout the whole show, one of the last gigs I went to, there was somebody next to me, and through the entire show, they got the phone in front of them, and they were watching the show through their little screen in front when it was happening in front of them. It's like, no, put your phone away and get memories and remember it all.
I mean, I tell you the truth, I've been on that stage and having like 20 or 30 cameras right in front of me. Yeah, exactly. And I don't get it. And it pisses me off, to be honest, sometimes, because I mean, why do you come to see a live concert? Is that you just came to film it or whatever? I mean, I just don't understand it. I really do not. I think it's okay if people like film a bit of it, so have some kind of a memory from that night or something like that. But some people are literally standing watching the concert through the iPhone. And I just don't get it. Maybe I'm just old school. I don't know. I don't get it.
No, me neither. Or turning your back to the stage. And I've seen this for 2 songs, just so you can take selfies of yourself with the bands behind you. And it's like you're not even facing in the direction of the stage. I don't get that at all.
I mean, from a musician's or a singer's perspective, it's not really fun standing there with all those people standing like that. I love playing live, but I could be without that. But these are the times, and it is what it is.
What's the state of play at the moment then, Ronnie, as regards live shows? I mean, I know you've got a couple of gigs coming up soon in Sweden, haven't you? But what does this year look like for you as far as planning live shows?
Well, I just it's also because this is just something I want to do, because I haven't been on a stage for 2.5 years, partly because of illness and also because of COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
And so I just kind of said, this is kind of a puzzle, because the band, the band that plays on my records are like from all kinds of bands, from Sweden and Denmark, and there's some earlier previous Pretty Mates members and stuff like that. But they're all in other projects and stuff like that. So it's kind of a puzzle to make ends meet. But now I have a deal with those guys for like 4 or 5 concerts in May, and I just gotta go out there and do it again. That's I set goals for myself all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I set my goal to do the first album, to do the second album. Now I want to do this, and I have some other things that I've been working on and stuff like that. But I've got to check out myself and see where I'm at, because I lost 20% of my lung capacity. And one thing is sitting home in here next to me, this room with my upright piano playing and all my guitar, writing songs, singing with my little French bulldog. That's one thing. And being in a studio. Another thing is being on stage, because I definitely can make I can feel a change with my breathing. I kind of train every day. I do cardio every day, like an hour and a half. In fact, I always did. And that's good for me, health-wise. But there's something has happened. I can feel it in my chest and stuff like that, that I lost physically 20% of my lung capacity. So I got to see where I am. I got to learn how to pace myself, and I have to, But I just got to. I'm curious. I just got to check it out. And if it goes all wrong, I'll just stick to recording, I guess. But no, I'm determined to do it. So I think it's going to be good.
Well, we said before we started recording, because I'm in Wales, and that you haven't been to Wales since the 80s. I do hope at some point I get another chance to see you here in the UK live. And failing that, just please continue to put out the music, because both myself, everybody listening, you've got a big audience that loves your music, Ronnie. So yeah, as long as you keep making it, there's a lot of people that'll keep buying it.
I'm happy to hear that. And I promise you one thing, as long as I can, I will.
That's really,
because I said it's what I got to do it, because I don't really have a lot of ideas ready, for something else. I haven't made any decisions what I want to do next, but I'm a songwriter. I write songs, and when you do it for a purpose. You want to get them out of your system. And but it might be. I got also involved myself in another project. I mean, I got offers, but I haven't really made up my mind yet what I want to do. But I want to do these live shows. And I want to get this album out. I'm going to do some promotion. I'm doing promo right now, of course, but I got quite a lot of promo next week or 10 days or something like that. But about planning for me everything is so much more complicated these days, because every time if I just go to Hamburg, which is like 2.5 hours from where I live, but as soon as I go out of the country, I got to seek for permission for insurance reasons from SOS Denmark, it's called, because otherwise I'm not insured, and that can be expensive.
Oh yeah.
So, and I got to do that for every individual country I go into, kind of. So they go in and check my journal for the last 8 weeks with the oncologists, and if I just complained about a bad arm or something, or whatever, or a headache or something, I can have problems. So I live my life in intervals of 3 months, because I can't plan too long out of the future. But also the promoters knows this. I mean, now I just announced some concerts in Denmark and Sweden, and the promoters, of course, are well aware of my situation. And if I have a setback, which I hopefully not will have, then it is what it is. Then I can't do anything about it. But I'm positive, man. I'm positive. Got a positive mindset, and let's go for it. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad that you've got the attitude that you have, Ronnie, and like I said, that you're still continuing to pump out this awesome music, and hopefully we can record another show. You can tell me about the live shows in Denmark and Sweden and how they went, and your next upcoming album. That would be so good as well.
I'd love to, Dave. Just set it up.
I will do. Well, I could talk to you for hours, Ronnie, but I don't want to go over our time. But for the sake of the edit, we shall say goodbye. I will say to everybody listening to this, if for some reason you haven't heard any of Ronnie's music, we've talked about Pretty Maids, we've talked about Nordic Union. Well, don't even get me started on that. Because of Us, that when that song came out, I played it so many times. I loved Because of Us and the whole album. And your solo stuff, please go and buy One Shot. That's already out. This will be out about a week before Make It Count is out. Pre-order it and buy it, and trust me, people that listen to these shows know my taste in music. If you like my taste in music, you're going to love Ronnie's. So thank you, Ronnie. And for the sake of the edit, we shall say goodbye, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Pleasure being here. Take care, Dave. Bye-bye. Nice to be on the show.
Thanks, Ronnie.